Now he does try to make two arguments that I'll talk about specifically surrounding this. The first argument is he says that it's important because it gives funding. Well, the other bills that were suggested, for example, Trump trying to give funding to them, trying to build the wall, etc., in 2019 that the Democrats shut down, also tried to give funding. The Republican bill also tries to give funding. The problem is it's not just a matter of funding. It's the fact that these Border Patrol agents, as they've said, yes, they do need more money, but it's they're being intentionally hamstrung by the Biden administration. He hasn't addressed the fact that this bill specifically allowed loopholes where Mayorkas himself and other people in the administrative state would be able to waive and have exemptions for people. We could see that they would have been likely to do that because they like these people coming in. As the person that's calling in, I forget your name, I'm so sorry, Alex, I think. As Alex, it's clear that he didn't think it was a crisis. It was fine with the record numbers of people we had coming in. That's the exact feeling that the Democrats and Joe Biden had. They only started to pretend to care about it when it came to 2024. He says that he says that this money would be good. Yeah, I'm sure money would be good, but we could see even without the money that he's suggesting that this bill is necessary, the executive orders that Trump had these numbers far lower than the numbers that we had of Joe Biden. And the Republicans passed a bill that had more teeth, and you could see what the response is. Democrats don't actually want a bill with teeth because they want the bill that has the loopholes and all of that stuff that would have made the bill worthless in the first place. That's why they wanted a bill like this in the first place, because it had these loopholes. It would have been enshrined in law. It did fund the NGOs. It did make sure that like 5,000 or something would be able to come in a day. It did. You said wrong. It doesn't fund the NGOs?
Your framing you have of this.
Okay, so then wrong. You interrupted erroneously because you're just saying what I'm saying is factual. You're just saying that you disagree with the framing of it. Now, again, it's ironic because he's the person who seems to be hyper-focused on this bill, but it's quite evident that I know more about what's in that bill than him, who's using this as the whole reason for an excuse as to why the Democrats did nothing when they controlled the show for 2 years.
You are lying about the bill. You're lying.
What part did I lie about?
You were lying about the funds. You were coping about the funds.
So you're telling me
the funds aren't going to do anything. Actually, you're saying the funds.
You said what part did I lie about? What part did I lie about the bill? You said I said where did I say the funds are not going to do anything? Show me, quote me where I said that. Where did I say the phrase the funds will not do anything?
It had to have been at least 10 seconds ago, maybe 15
Okay, and I said the direct words, the funds aren't going to do anything. That's what I said. And you're like, that's not true, that's a lie. The funds will do something. That's the argument that you're making? No, you said lie specifically when I said it funds NGOs. You said that's a lie. Does it fund NGOs? We'll go step by step. Here's the things I said. Does it fund NGOs?
Does the bill fund NGOs?
Yes.
What NGOs do they fund, and what is the purpose of the
question I was asking was, does the bill fund NGOs?
Oh, sure, but what is the purpose of the NGOs?
The bill funds NGOs.
What is the purpose? What are the NGOs doing, and what are they doing? Because the framing
largely
is the
a lot of
purpose
these groups.
this.
Now, why they do it's irrelevant because we're going to get to specific things, but it is true that the NGOs are intentionally helping people come to the border and giving them instructions on how to claim asylum and get through here, right? That's one of the reasons that this would be bad, because it literally funds the organizations that are helping so many of these people come to the border.
Helping the legal. So the NGOs that are helping them with the legal process.
So the next thing I said was that it allows like 5,000 something a day or something like that. Yes or no? Is that true?
So you don't want them facilitating the legal process?
I asked you a specific question. Yes or no? You said what I said was a lie. You said that the claims I said about this bill was a lie.
Yes.
So when I said, okay, so it does allow 5,000 something. You acknowledge that. A day.
Yeah, yep. Until Biden can shut down the border. Until Biden can shut that border down completely.
Does it provide for people in the administrative state like Mayorkas to give special exemptions?
The administrative state?
Yes.
So you believe in the so Project 2025 specifically talks about the administrative state.
Wow, that's
very
cool.
Interesting, Rob.
I've also heard Bill Clinton use the term administrative state, so I must be a Democrat as well.
So is this a deep state?
What does this have to do?
What does administrative state mean, Rob? What does administrative state mean?
Administrative state means the people in the executive branch that are tasked with being people that are in the cabinet that are able to make these decisions.
No, that's not what that means.
Okay, then you define what I meant by administrative state.
You know exactly what you meant by when you talk about
what I meant about administrative state. What I'm talking about is there are people in these agencies, such as Mayorkas, that are happy with the amount of people that we're coming across, and this gives them the ability to have exemption power. So because we already saw their record of 2021, 2022, of 2023, of believing like you do, that this wasn't a problem, that the framing of MAGA was wrong, that they would continue to employ that when they had ultimate authority to do so, because it was enshrined in this law to give them exceptions. Yes, they did. My question to you is, you made the declarative, you interrupted interrupted me to say that I was lying about the things that I said this bill did. So far, you have conceded that I was correct about funding the NGOs.
No, I know I didn't.
Conceded, so it doesn't fund NGOs. You can't even be honest about what you just said. You just admitted, yes, it does fund the NGOs. Then when I say you admitted that, you say, no, I didn't admit that. So I'll ask you again for clarification. It's clear that you accuse me of not arguing in good faith. You're duplicitous and even benign answers. I will ask again for clarification. I will ask again for clarification. Did this bill fund NGOs? A yes or no will suffice.
Yes, to help immigrants cross the legal manner.
So then when I said it funds NGOs, and you said I was a liar, and then you said yes, and then I said okay,
you're a liar on
and then you said yes,
and
then when I said, oh, but you said yes, and you said I didn't say that, and then I asked you again, you said yes, so you've now waffled on this 3 times. So one, I said that it funded NGOs, you've conceded that's true. Second, does it allow exemptions for it doesn't trigger until 5,000 or so come a day?
So in the NGOs, that's a legal process for crossing. You support legal crossing directly?
Second question.
Do you support legal crossing of the border?
No, I do not support that. The NGOs.
So you don't support legal immigration
either. What you're doing is trying. You accuse me of being a liar, and
you support legal immigration.
You accuse me of being a liar, and all the substantive points that I said were true. You can't argue that, and so now you're trying to deflect. And you're saying, okay, it does fund NGOs, but that's a good thing. The substantive points there are the following things I said. One, it funds NGOs. After some waffling, you had to concede that yes, it does fund NGOs, and now you are waffling. You said yes, it does. Then you said no, I never said yes. Then you said yes, it does. That is the definition of waffling. You are directly changing your answer. The second thing I said was that it allows an exemption. It doesn't really trigger until there's 5,000 or something a day, some number. You acknowledged, yes, that's true. That part of it was true. The third part I said was it allows people like Mayorkas in the administrative state, people like under Mayorkas in that office, to give exemptions. Your answer to that is that true or not?
You're spinning so much, dude, because
I'm not spinning.
Number one,
these are the same arguments I've made about this bill since the first time you brought it up that you have not addressed. You have accused me of lying, so I'm just asking you whether or not I made basically 4 points. So the first 2 points you have been forced to concede were true. So now we're on to point 3. Did it give powers for Mayorkas and people?
Rob, the more you talk, that doesn't mean you win. You know this, right?
I understand that. That's why I'm asking you simple. That's why you interrupted me is the point I was making, and you said that I was lying. Now the burden is on you to show I was lying. I made 4 claims. So far, we've gone through 2 claims, and it turns out I wasn't lying. Now we're on claim 3. I'm asking you, did this bill give exemption power to Mayorkas where he could have exemptions for certain people that cross the border? Yes or no?
I was referring to the lying about the framing of what I said, because we're having a meta conversation about the conversation, because you're layering this thing instead of just addressing what is saying at the surface. You're going to have mini conversations about the conversation. I'm not interested in that. I will literally flare out with this.
You can flare out. So now you can say, so he interrupted me. Now you could go back to being quiet. So when I said that this bill did these sort of things, and he said, you're a liar, then we had to painstakingly go through and say, okay, what am I lying about? Then he defaults back to, okay, the things I said are technically true. It's just that my framing of it is a lie. That's the problem. My framing of it's
yes.
So the things
there
that
you go.
I said,
The
things that I said about last chance, you already interrupted me to call me a liar, and then we're made a fool of.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying right now.
If you can't contain yourself, then I'll be forced to mute you again. Now, one of the things that I think was funny was when I mentioned this before, you asked me to mute you and then complained when I complied with your request, which is also funny. So I'll go back to the point I was trying to make. It's hard to keep a train of thought when you have someone interrupting, calling you a liar, and then when you go painstakingly through the claims you made, they're forced to admit, okay, you're telling the truth about all that. I just disagree with your framing of it. So you can see sort of when it comes to the substance of talking about the specific bill, he hasn't really said anything. He just says, it gives money. I've already addressed that. Then he makes this second argument that's now going to be an excuse for why the Democrats didn't do anything in 2021, 2022. He says, well, it's because Manchin and Sinema. Nonetheless, Biden was the person in charge. He was running the party. Why couldn't he get them on board with anything? Is the argument really going to be? Last chance. It's not a matter of being a dictator. It's not like he has to break their arm. The executive is supposed to actually have the people underneath him be the party leader and get something accomplished. It's on him whether or not he could get something accomplished to deal with the border. The truth is, because like Alex here, who's called in, he didn't think it was a crisis. Alex has already given you the answer. Alex shows himself that he's like, actually, I didn't have a problem with those numbers. I think that it was being misframed. I think it was bad the way MAGA was framing it. Yes, that's exactly my argument. That's how Biden fell. That's why you can't point to the substance substantive bills that Biden was suggesting be pushed through. I'll allow him to try to do that when he gets a chance to speak. He can say, oh, this is the bill that Biden tried to put that would have had more security. And then Manchin and Sinema said, no, sorry, Joe Biden, we won't go along with that. I'll allow him to give the example of that bill. I certainly will. Then when it comes to the debate proper, like he says that Vance didn't have any substance and he just starts to prattle on with these empty platitudes about MAGA and things like that. Vance had far more substance than you saw from Walz. It's objective to anyone that was watching. He then proceeds to just make these excuses like, well, of course, Vance, he's a debater. He's a debater. That's it. He went to Yale. Right. These are giving excuses for why he performed better than Walz. So I am going to get out of here by 11:30, so I'll give you a chance to respond to all of this. But I have to say, like, with one of the things I always think is funny when dealing with someone like you is it's not just that you're like not doing so hot, particularly on the substance of the things we're talking about, but it's your arrogance while you're doing so poorly that I find incredibly amusing. And so I'll give you a chance to respond to all this, but know that I'm very much enjoying this interaction. And I'm glad that you think you're doing well and you're using these buzzwords that you're doing, but you're doing very poorly. You don't even understand the fundamentals of the bill that you're talking about. And you're actually waffling on whether or not you say things like, I never said that it funds NGOs, and then I'm forced to go through it. And then you complain that I'm getting so meta talking about these specifics. When you call someone a liar and they ask you, well, what part did I lie about? And you are forced to say, well, it's just a framework, and you have to waffle continuously. You can see how the debate gets drugged down in the mud with things like this. But go ahead, you have a chance to respond, and then this will be your last chance to respond. So we'll give you up to 5 minutes here, and then I do have to get going at some point tonight. So go ahead. Here it comes with the substance. Here we go.
Yes. I really do appreciate when you give my arguments to your audience in the play-by-play, like as if they're not listening. That's my personal favorite. Like as if we're not talking to each other in like a one-on-one conversation, and we don't have hundreds and hundreds of people watching us right now. So the play-by-play back is really interesting. I'm sure your audience appreciates that and having it maga-splained to them, because they just can't hear me on what I'm saying. That's very adorable. I do like that debate tactic. I will remember that one in the future. I do think it is very important when debating to have a back and forth in good faith. I mean, we didn't really have good faith from the beginning. You were muting me. I mean, I could have did better, not like talking over you, but I mean, you were just kind of talking and being loud with your talking. And when I would explain the fundamental disagreement I have, because I mean, our disagreements are fundamental. Like, I am not a Trump supporter. I am not you. I don't live in right-wing world like you do. I used to. Trust me, I grew up Fox News watcher. I grew up, I told you, you're going to call it cope or whatever, but I grew up in the same position you were in, and I came away from it. So I fully understand the beliefs and positions that you have and how you get them. But when I'm debating you and I'm talking to you directly, and the way you repackage what I'm saying to you, and I'm arguing every single point you're making, is, I don't know if that's a lasting tactic or how people are going to engage with you on the left. And I'm not even as far left as many would be, but I'm just recently getting into the space myself. But I was arguing every point, specifically with the U.S. southern border, and I know that MAGA will focus on this, and Trump supporters like focusing on the southern border because it is the only issue that you have to run on in the 2024 election. But that is also by design, because Donald Trump ensured that would happen by killing the border bill that would have at least addressed the concerns, because you would have needed bills. You would have needed more bills. This wasn't going to be the fix-all. This wasn't going to be the bill to end all bills, and the U.S. southern border would be cured now, and everything is great. No, this would have been a bill. There would have been more bills, more legislation done, more work done in the government, which is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to go to work for us, and they're supposed to pass bills for the American people that are going to directly address our concerns. So to say that that it should come from the executive, as if it's like America's a dictatorship and not working with our Congress, is very, very frightening to me. And yes, our debate that we started with J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, I already said J.D. Vance did be optically confident. I agree with that. Like he came across, he was able to be quick and snappy, which is very important in a debate. I've noticed debates, when it comes to presidential debates, vice presidential debates, you have to be more entertaining than the other person. People are waiting for a quickness. They don't want long-winded arguments. They don't want to hear actual policies and legislation. They want someone who's going to get clickbait. And that's why you specifically think Tim Walz lost, because he wasn't attacking JD Vance. He was more so addressing the questions and the substance of the questions, which I feel, at least how I vote, is very important to do. Like I clickbait and click farming is fun, and it's cool to do for TikToks and Reels and the internet, but I'm trying to listen to some substance. So when it came back and forth, just in conclusion, I know you said you got to go, so I don't want to take your time too much. And again, thank you for having me on your show regardless, even though we do have fundamental disagreements on this and it got a little heated. I do appreciate you and your audience's time for having me over here. I just feel that on the substance of the debate, Tim Walz won when answering the questions. JD Vance didn't give a single specific answer to any question. Tim Walz was very specific with his answers, and even to the point of the foundation of like why I've switched completely from, I mean, I'm speaking to you personally as a voter now and not someone with the platform, but me personally, why I've switched from the Republican Party to voting Democrat this year is Donald Trump and January 6th. And yeah, I know that you were talking to your other guests that you have no interest in January 6th, but I'm telling you the majority of the country still does. And that was a very, very dark day in American history where Donald Trump tried to overturn the results of the election and send a mob at the Capitol to try to physically stop the electoral process. And I just view that as the antithesis to the United States. So I will be voting happily against Donald Trump, and maybe the Republican Party can get their act together again someday, but that is not going to be this year.
Okay, thanks so much for calling in. I'll address your comments here. You can stay in the chat if you want, but yeah, I mean, again, I hate to use this again, but remember the quote in Billy Madison where he's like, "You've said nothing in your rambling. We're all dumber for having listened to it." No addressing of substance whatsoever. The irony, of course, being that you talked about wanting substance through interactions and debates, just empty platitudes. I used to be Republican, you're MAGA, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, it's just nothing. You didn't address any of the specific things I said about the bill. You didn't address any of the things I said about the fact that Joe Biden, you continue to not do so. You just sort of went on about these platitudes over and over. Well, it was bipartisan, and you know, you're lying, and you're the way you frame to your audience, and like, it's just nothing. There's nothing there. It's just hot air. I do appreciate you calling in. I do. I don't have any hard feelings. I enjoy interactions, even like this, that I think there wasn't much substance to, but I find it amusing, and I enjoy debating people. This is the primary thing that I like doing, and the reason I stream is for entertainment. So I wish you no hard feelings. I'd be happy to talk to you again. We could set up a moderated debate if you want, or we just have a conversation like this. No problem whatsoever. I wish you well in your endeavors, but I think that you were overly arrogant and very lacking on substance, if I'm being quite honest. And I think that, unfortunately, the immigration debate proves it. And I think that a lot of what's going on is that it's unfortunate to me because a lot of people just won't admit what they really feel. I think it's not too difficult to intuit that what you really think is you were happy with the border. You were. There may be some things that you would say, well, actually, I think we should facilitate these people coming in and being legally allowed here faster. But as far as the amount of people that were coming, you were happy with it, and you wanted them to be left into the country, and you probably even.
Rob, that's a bad faith argument.
Okay, that's what I'm intuiting. That's what I'm intuiting. I'll give you 20 seconds to respond to this. You were upset with the amount of people that were coming at the border. Then you thought many of them should have been sent packing, and you were upset with the amount, or you were okay with the amount.
I would neither. I would say there's a fundamental problem with the asylum. I'm not indifferent either. I'm answering your question. There's a fundamental problem with the system of the asylum seeking, and it needs to be handled. You can't wave a magic wand to fix it. You can't militarize the U.S. southern border to fix it. That's why I think I was being very good faith with you and your audience that I fundamentally disagree with your position on the border entirely. And I said that multiple times, Rob. And I said that to you multiple times.
I understand you disagree with my position on the border. What I'm saying is we could see the amount of people that were coming. Do you think that was way too many people that were coming? Yes or no will suffice.
I don't.
Okay, so that's what I said, that you were okay with the amount of people that were coming. And then I'll ask you a follow-up question, which seemed to be the other thing that you objected to. Most of these people, barring like any severe criminality or something, I'll give you the good faith on that you're not saying, oh, this guy was a bin Laden follower, bring him in. But most of those people, barring that sort of stuff, you would have wanted to legally be allowed to remain in the United States?
Wrong.
Okay, what would the process that you would advocate for be?
More money for asylum judges, more security, because that's what that bill would have handled. It would have handled the process in the back.
So you want, but your goal would be to have more judges to send these people packing.
Yes, Rob. Yes.
Okay, That surprises me. I'll take you at your word.
Rob, that's my position. Rob, that has been my position. Like, you didn't even let me explain my full position on it because you were talking over me. Like,
it is.
That's why I said, Rob, I fundamentally disagree with you on the border. And I think I even said it during the debate. I agree there is a problem at the southern border, but I feel that it's in the asylum process and it's so backlogged, which is why I feel it was very important that bill passed so that way we get asylum judges and resources to mitigate those problems, because they're not just going to go away. Those asylum, because they're in the country, Rob, right? There are those people that are seeking asylum are in the U.S. right now. I don't disagree with you there. But in order to have them face a judge and be decided if they can continue to stay in the country or go back to wherever they came from, if they're a bad actor or a criminal, they have to face that judge, and we need those resources. But what about and bad actors?
What about ones that aren't bad actors and criminals? Should they be left in or not?
So how do you mitigate that? Are you going to have vigilantism?
What I'm asking you is, it seems that there's this huge amount of people that are coming, and we have potentially we have no idea to the tune of like 20 million people. Some people say there's 10 million illegals. Some people say there's 30 million. That's how disparate we are in that number. We have hundreds of thousands that are coming. The number dramatically increasing under Biden. You seem to say, I don't think that number is really a problem. Like, you're sort of indifferent to the amount of people. You're like, I don't think it's really a problem. And so then I'm like, okay, what someone like me is concerned with is, it seems like what the Biden administration is, ultimately they want those people in. And then, as Chuck Schumer said, he wants to give them a path to citizenship. So I already got you to admit, like, I don't really have a problem with that amount of people are coming. I just want them to be processed faster. And so then my follow-up question is...
That's not what I said either, Rob. No, wrong. That's not what I said either. And
did you say yes or no? Okay, let's break it down. Let's break it down. Instead of me saying, you said this,
let me do it.
Let's break it down in little parts. Let me break it down. No. I will break it down in little parts. Did you say that you don't have a problem with the amount of people that we saw coming during the Biden administration? Yes or no?
I don't see it as the same issue as you do, because
that's not the question. That's not the question. Now you're going to say, well, it's not the same as you see it. That implies you know it how I see it, and it leaves room for ambiguity of not answering the question with a yes or a no. I'll ask you again. Did you have a problem with the amount of people that were coming, that we saw?
I have a problem with the backlog. I have a problem with the backlog.
Why can't you answer the question? Why can't you answer the question?
Because I disagree with you fundamentally on the framing of the question.
It has nothing to do. What part of the framing do you disagree with?
The majority of people that are coming into the country and staying here illegally are coming through a visa process and staying.
What does that have anything to do? That has nothing to do. You're intuiting framework that I've never mentioned. Never once did I say anywhere, most of these people are the people that are illegals here.
I know you're not saying it because we disagree. I know you're not, Rob. I know you're not.
It has nothing to do with the framework. It has nothing. When you say you disagree, when you say that you can't answer the question because you disagree with the framework, you're then implying some sort of framework that I've never said. I'm asking a simple question.
Rob, because
now let me finish. I'm asking a simple question because you keep saying I'm misrepresenting you. So I'm making it as simple as possible. Asking a yes/no question. Did you have a problem with the mass increase in the numbers we saw under the Biden administration? Why can't you just say, no, I don't think that number is a problem. I think the backlog's a problem that they're not being processed. Or yes, I thought that was way too many people coming. Why can't you say either of those?
Because why do you want me to say what you want me to say? Like, why do you want me to have a narrative that you want? Why aren't you just listening to what I'm saying?
I am listening to what you're saying, and what you're saying is nothing. What you're saying is, this is what you're saying. I'll steelman your position. I'm not taking a stance on the amount of people that were coming, that we saw coming, was good or bad. I don't take a stance on that. What I do think is there's a problem with the backlog. That is not answering the question that I'm saying. My fundamental criticism is actually the Biden administration didn't have a problem with the amount of people that were coming in. That's what I'm saying. I suspect that you feel the same way. You say, no, that's a misrepresentation of me. I say, okay, so are you saying that number was too much, that you had a problem with it or not? And you won't answer. Originally, you said, no, I'm not saying that it was a problem. Now you're saying, well, I don't agree with the framework. How can we have a conversation if I don't know what your beliefs are because you're unwilling to answer simple questions like this? Go ahead, ask me. Rob, did you have a problem with the number of people that were coming through the border on these encounters under Joe Biden? Yes. Yes, I absolutely had a problem. I thought it was way too many people. You see, then it's easy for you to understand what my position is, and you could then talk about that and talk
Because
about
these
what I
issues,
believe.
these issues are not simple yes or no answers and questions, Rob. Like
It
these
is
are
a
not
simple
simple
yes or no
it's
question.
really
For
not.
example,
It's
let me
not.
give you potential answers. No, the number specifically I don't have a problem with. Now, clearly there's a point where it could get to a number that would be overwhelming, but the only problem that number seems bad right now is because of the problem with the backlog. If we had more judges, the fact that this amount of people were coming wouldn't really be a problem because we'd be able to process them and send them back. See how I answered no and then articulated what the framework of that would be? Or yes, even if we had plenty of judges and things like that, this amount of people is not sustainable, and it would be a work overload even if we incredibly increase the funding. It's not sustainable to have this amount of people coming to the border, particularly when many of the people that are coming, as human rights organizations have said, are victims of sexual trafficking, drug mules, and other things like that. So yes, even if we did process these people more, those numbers themselves are problematic on their own. You see how that was another answer? Both of those answers that I gave definitively
highly partisan answers. Those are highly biased framed answers.
They're not biased. In fact, I suspect that your answer would be the first answer. That's what I would suspect your answer would be. But you can't answer. So I just, real quick before I leave you go, your stance is you refuse to give an answer as to whether or not you thought that the number of people that were coming across the southern border under Joe Biden was bad. You refuse to give an answer to that because there's more framing to it. That's your answer?
There's more context to it. There's more things that need to be done. It's not a one issue.
I
know you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I know. You just want to line everyone up and just execute everybody at the border, but it's not going to happen.
Again, you go back to this sort of straw man. I never said line people up at the border and execute.
I know.
You're unwilling to answer the most basic positions, and you've waffled on. You did not answer. You did not. You said your answer was I refused to answer.
Wrong. I said that I also see that there's a problem at the U.S. southern border, and I think I've said that multiple times.
There is a problem at the border, right? That's absolutely. You did say there's a problem at the border. I asked if one of the things you have a problem with was the amount of people that were coming under Joe Biden. Now you're saying no. You're saying that's not a problem.
The people that are crossing the U.S. southern border, it's an asylum problem. The people that are seeking asylum in the United States.
Is the amount of people a problem? Is the amount of people that came under the Biden administration?
On the asylum, yes.
So far you've said no.
On the asylum list that are seeking
so far you've said no. Then you said no. Then you said I'm not going to answer its framework. Now you're saying yes.
Are you going to listen to what my argument?
Yeah, I'll listen to you change your argument again, as you've done repeatedly. Go ahead. You can change your argument again. Now it is a problem. The amount of people that came is a problem. Go ahead.
The amount of people has been a problem that are coming across, and it's in the asylum. That's why it's been trying to be tackled by the Biden administration, but they keep fighting against MAGA Republicans in the House and Donald Trump on the back end to make sure that this stays a continuous problem because they don't want actually any solutions or legislation at the border. They don't want any policies to actually solve the U.S. southern border problem, and that's why this specific talking point has gone on for like 2 hours, and we haven't been able to talk about anything else.
Cool. If it was a problem, why didn't Biden speak of this? Why was he repeatedly signaling to the American people that there wasn't a problem at the southern border, that it was secure in 2021, 2022?
Because he was legislating for the American people, getting bills passed and getting.
What does that have to do with his statements and Mayorkas' statements that the border was secure? You have to lie and say the border's secure because you're passing the Inflation Reduction Act?
Sure. Okay. My argument on the U.S. southern border.
Come on, you know that's laughable. You admit that that's a laughable argument.
I don't even know if that's a valid argument to make. Like you're being bad faith with even my own arguments.
What are you talking about? You just said that the reason I said we saw the Biden administration and people like Mayorkas saying in 2021 and 2022 the border is secure. You're admitting actually no, there were way too many people coming. That's what you're admitting. That's not what they were saying in 21 and 22. So I ask you, why weren't they saying that? And you say because they were working on other legislation. And I say, but that's ridiculous. The fact that you have to say the border is secure and you had to lie or be wrong about that because you're working on other legislation, that's an absurd argument. And I'll allow you to respond, I guess.
Like the U.S. southern border and what we are trying to pass there and what the Democrats had, the Republicans could have led that, and they could have taken that position with the bill that was going to be passed and claimed a W on that, but they didn't want to. Yes,
2024. I'm talking specifically about 2021, 2022.
Why?
Because that was when the crisis began.
Is the crisis not ongoing right now?
Yes.
Okay, so then when we're trying to fix the crisis right now, why is that? Why
That's
can't
an
we get
interesting
legislation
deflection. My argument is
it's not a deflection.
My
it's,
argument
it's,
is,
it's
and
the
I've been the
substance
one.
of it.
I've been the one that's been arguing substance on this. What I've argued is that this bill was bad. I outlined things that I thought specifically was bad in the bill. Not everything, but I did outline 4 main points that I was making why I thought it was bad. And I said that at least we could see that the Republicans tried to do stuff and Trump tried to do stuff. He was stymied in 2019 through shutdowns from Democrats that wanted this sort of border crisis to occur. Now, my question became, if the numbers, if you think they were a crisis, why did Biden not say they were a crisis until an election year? Why didn't he say it was too much in 2021, 2022, and 2023?
So the lack of comments is what you're going with, because right-wing media were focused on it, and right-wing podcasters are focused on it.
And not just the lack of comments, though. Your answer there is very telling. So the reason that Biden didn't say anything is because he was afraid Joe Rogan talked about it, or Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I would have to look into the first couple of years, and I will give you this, like the first couple of years of Biden's administration, whether he made comments or not. I will happily do that research for you and get back to you on that. Okay. I actually will. And when it comes to the full administration and the full 4 years of the presidency, and at the very end, he was willing to work with Republicans and the Senate-led Republican with James Lankford to get a serious border aid done. And you want to cope and say that it wasn't a good bill, and I just fundamentally disagree. And I think it was a very good bill that was going to at least step in the right direction to address the concerns at the southern border, which are overwhelmingly the asylum seekers and the backlog systems that are keeping people on that list and not actually deciding whether they can stay in the country or whether they can leave.
All right, man. Like again, you're just back to the same talking point. You don't have an answer as to what
that is. I just gave you an answer.
You've literally said that.
How is what I'm saying?
If you let me finish, you don't have an answer as to why Biden was out to lunch on this in 2021, 2022, 23. You just are like, well, he tried in 2024. My entire criticism is that he didn't really care about this. He rescinded the issues. He didn't have a problem with the amount of people that was coming. He continued to, in his administration, continued to say the border was secure, that it was a problem being blown out of proportion. They didn't do anything until it was an election year, and then they pushed for this bill, a bill that I'm arguing on substance. I'm the only one talking about the actual things on the bill. Well, I think it was bad, and it would have been enshrined in law for years, which meant that if Republicans would win or Trump would win, that they would have difficulty rescinding that. And the same people that are saying, actually, the Haitian immigrants are legal because of the policies that Joe Biden would be making that argument with saying that we have to allow 5,000 or something in a day because they'd say Republicans signed for this. Now they're legal. You have to let them in. It enshrined that into law. Those are reasons that this would be bad. And you just keep going back to the exact same talking point. You just ignore 2021, 2022, 2023, and you're like, yeah, but in 2024, bipartisan bill, Lankford would have did good. I disagree with you. That's it. And you're not talking substantively addressing the things I'm saying. It sounds
like projection. It sounds like projection because I am addressing. It's all projection because I'm directly addressing everything.
You are not addressing. You're just saying, I disagree. I think the bill was good. That's your addressing. So, for example, when I say,
I've given specific examples of how the bill
when I say, for example, that it allows some 5,000 something a day in, your specific answer was?
My specific answer to allowing good, then the Biden can shut the border down with executive action.
So now your argument is, first off, that's the first time that you've ever addressed that whatsoever. And your answer is laughable. So now your answer is, okay, this bill allows 5,000 a day in, but Biden could then take the executive step of having an executive order on top of the bill that he's pushing for that actually would shut down the Biden.
No, that's what the bill said that he would be able to do. Like, that's what's in the bill. That would give him the power to do it. That was one of the talking points.
But it wasn't until the bill wasn't enforceable until a certain number of people were met a day. So it had to be over a certain period of time. So many people had to enter until.
Well, no kidding. So you want the border just completely stone cold shut down. Nobody crosses.
That's what I prefer. But there could have been a bill that wasn't that strong.
So that's your argument.
Well, let me be clear. Let me be clear. I don't think that means that someone who's traveling with a visa from Mexico to visit in the United States shouldn't be allowed to get in. But I do think that the problems we're having right now with immigration are so significant that there needs to be a temporary halt, particularly to the asylum procedures, and so that we shouldn't allow any of these people in because of the advantage that's been taken of it, particularly by Democrats that have been pushing this because they're trying to import these people. However, there could have been a bill that didn't go as far as I want, but that it certainly would have been far more secure than leaving thousands of people a day in. And when I bring that up and you're like, well, if those people decided to come in, then Biden could just through executive fiat say, no, never mind, I'm shutting down the border.
Isn't that what you want?
No. What I want is a bill that
you don't want Biden to shut the border down?
I don't want a bill that hamstrings our administration's ability to secure the border until 5,000 or something a day come.
So
no, I don't want
You want
that.
dictatorship then. You want
No,
executive
that is not a
action.
dictatorship.
That is a dictatorship.
So your argument is because I'm opposed to a bill that allows 5,000 illegals a day to cross our border before enforcement action could be taken that I want a dictatorship. How about I want a bill that only allows 20? That's the bill I want. That's not a dictatorship.
So you're going to go down there, Rob, and stand there and make sure only 20 cross?
You're completely,
what happens
again,
if
this is
21
empty
cross?
platitude.
What happens if 21 cross?
Then we enforce the border. Wait, what happens if 5,000?
What does that mean? What does enforce the border mean? What
Okay, you tell me. The same provisions.
No, you tell me. No.
Okay,
you
I'll tell you.
me
You ready?
I support the bill. I supported that bill. You didn't.
Okay.
What does securing the border look like to you?
Sure. The same thing happens once 21 reach is the same thing that happens after 5,001 reach in the bill that you want.
The border shuts down. Biden has the authority to shut the border down.
Cool. That's what I want the bill. 20 come in, then we have the authority to shut the border down. Cool. Same thing.